Well, it's finished after 4.5, 5 months worth of work. Uh, yeah, it's finally finished. And I said before in the art talk, this is entitled "For All the Women That I've Ever Loved." And it's been quite a journey. And if you want more personal details, especially concerning my life since I started contracting. I'm putting on a sock here. That I've not been in an intimate relationship with a woman or anyone really in close to 7 years. For real. And one of the things that prevented me from really wanting, and I've said this before, to getting into something, shift this over more in center line like usual. The reason why I haven't got into any kind of relationship is because of, well, the legal precedents that were set and false accusations and the power that women were gaining in the law system, the justice system, in for which, concerning relationships, divorces, rape accusations, sexual assaults, and whatnot. And while you should believe the victim, there's always that degree, that window of false accusation. And just hearing the stories and the experiences of my fellow tradesmen, especially contracting, where it's so hard on the relationships that you might as well just be single. And if you're trying to accomplish something, like I have, trying to accomplish something, trying to gather as much experience and as diverse as an experience as possible for the sake of practical engineering, right? Like my end goal with being a mechanic and AME was always to go a bit higher with aerospace engineering and learn things like the old school engineers did, break it till it's fixed sort of thing, with all the revisions and the building and so forth, with each design upon the past, so there's a traceable lineage of an evolution of something. You're not just creating something from scratch, right? And I very much approach this painting the same way. Is being revised and changed continuously, like life. And the stresses of being on the road. I know there's a lot of famous people and entertainers that understand this kind of life, and service people. The same, all very much the same experiences, with the isolation and the possibility of extortion, especially for famous men. It's well documented about NFLers or NHLers or NBAers, that you don't get involved with strange women. You never know what their intents are, and if they try to frame you for rape or sexual assault, it's very hard to prove that you weren't involved, especially if it's your word versus theirs in a closed space. It comes down to a decision by the judge, and if it doesn't go to say like a jury trial or something along those lines, and it becomes like a lesser charge. It gets brought down to a summary offense or something like that, then, it's still damaging, right? It goes on your record, and you can still have your fingerprints taken, you still get put on some sort of registry, and it's very, traumatizing, to have to go through that process when you haven't done anything in particular. In other cases where people say they get labeled or get charged with criminal harassment, but they're seeking out a lifeline, or some sort of help, an ear, by someone, and they're having a panic attack, then in that case they're not liable for what happens thereafter, right? It's not criminally responsible. And also the mentality of the person of the accuser has to be taken into account, especially if there's some sort of conspiracy and there's multiple parties involved. Because frankly, it's very easy to be singled out as someone. Excuse me. It's that protein powder. It's very easy to be singled out as someone. Especially if you're in a position which is seen to have power, or high status, right? And I've had this in my head for a while now, and I'm going to make this part of the history of propaganda concerning psychopathic women who manipulate and use the system for their advantage, so that they have power. But power is not the legal system or manipulation. It's leadership. It's respect. It's completely different from the mentality of the age, and trying to legislate everything into conformity, or especially again with the gay propaganda, this intersectional grievance feminism, that I can't stand for. I love women. Obviously, by the example. Why would I entitle this for all the women I've ever loved if I didn't give a shit? Actions speak louder than words. And this, like I said, this literally took me 4.5, 5 months to paint, since October. It's not a joke, right? Being a creative person. And I'm starting to feel ignored, and I hate being ignored. I really don't like being ignored by art councils. And a few galleries have finally started responding with a few messages here and there, but that really shows the resistance to adaptation and the usage of social media as it's intended, which is to find other people who are of the same mentality and network with them, and say hello to them and whatnot. These ideas of creepiness and so on and so forth in the new era, in the digital frontier, right, are not the same as they used to be. So this is where variations, and it's a little crooked here. I'm not crooked, thankfully. Just trying to survive. There's a lot of room for interpretation, because the legal precedents weren't set beforehand, and now that this stuff is coming to the fore, excuse me, it's it's very intriguing. And I refer to my reference being Diana Davidson, Feminism LOL, with her defense of the falsely accused, and then also the Amber Heard trial, which set a precedent last year. And completely displayed the manipulation tactics of psychopathic women. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to put this on LinkedIn. I don't give it a hoot anymore, because there's, as I said, there's so many men out there like me who have had enough of this, and there's so many women out there that are tired of seeing men, just get absolutely obliterated by stupid people, right? Like, women aren't stupid. Absolutely. Like, I was raised by women. How can I say otherwise, right? What more is there to say? And I'm looking at, you know, this thing, you know, especially concerning the transgender propaganda. You know, recently today, seeing the you know, especially the corporatocracy that supports these social movements as to make themselves look better. When frankly, you know, gay people and transgender people, they don't want to be fetishized. You know, they got enough problems already. You know, the replacement, as I said in other videos, you know, the change of diagnostic rubric with the DSM-4 to DSM-5 was the impetus to the degradation and the entropy of the, you know, the scientific method, with the replacement of you know, objective observation and logic with subjectivity and you know, postmodern interpretation. So it can be anything you want to be. You're not where you come from. You know, it's all a matter of, you know, systemics and institutions and so on and so forth. It's not your fault. You can displace the blame. You can play the victim for the rest of your life in order to manipulate the system, and it's going to be okay because you'll be supported. But that comes down to, you know, Bolshevism and communism. You know, as previously explained and put out in these videos, it's a very, you know, I'm not going to say it's easy to understand, but it's easy to digest as much as I can make it easy to digest. Because, you know, of all the things I can say in these videos, you know, a video is worth a whole lot of words, right? A picture is worth 1,000 words, but a painting is worth 100,000 or more, right? To 1,000,000, right? Because a painting is more permanent than a video, in my opinion. This medium, this oil painting, has a whole lot to do with humanity. You know, especially if you're thinking about the modern day context, with me, you know, taking these photographs from someone that saw it happen, and then goes online, and so from organic to inorganic to organic again. And you know, the transgenderism is synthetic. It's a totally synthetic. It's an insidious and evil thing, and I say that as a Christian. That, you know, this is why I don't support it. And frankly, you know, if you look at the statistics, as I said before, you know, the one example of that United Airlines employee committed suicide. So transgender suicide rate. Okay, so this is off of NIH. Data indicated. So this is published in 2020. The lawyers, or so not the lawyers, the authors are Ashley Austin, Shelley L. Craig, Sandra D'Souza, Lauren B. McEnroy. Gordiganum to suicidality among transgender youth, elucidating the role of interpersonal risk factors. So data indicated that 82% of transgender individuals have considered killing themselves, and 40% have attempted suicide, with suicidality highest amongst transgender youth. Using minority stress theory and the interpersonal theory of suicide, this study aims to better understand this suicide risk amongst transgender youth. The present study examines the influence of intervenable risk factors. So, you know, basically, that's why I don't support it. The evidence is clear. You know, the cure is worse than the condition. Just how you know, the intersectional feminism is, as a cure for what ails society, is worse than the previous condition, right? Because the infiltration of psychopathic people and turbo lesbianism or political lesbianism, as I with that article displayed, illustrated in that article that I cited in a previous video and I put up online of the what's happening, 3Bs or whatever it was, the 3Bs, the Korean women, and because when we seek financial domination, right, that leaves you open or to wealth. What's the thing in the Bible? A rich man has about the same chances of entering the gates of heaven as a camel does through the eye of a needle. Because wealth is not power. It's actually it's a burden, and that's one of those reasons why I never okay. So I live with my parents, right? Because when I'm on the road, it's very expensive, and so then when I come home, right? My generation didn't have or doesn't have the same advantages as previous. You think about millennials and Gen Zers, and Gen Xers were starting to see this, and I started to see it back in 2007, 2008 with the first large financial crash with subprime mortgages and so on and so forth. Well documented and illustrated amongst the Obama era and the bailout of the banks, the corporate welfare states that were instituted with that precedent, too big to fail, and all of that financial propaganda, trying to prop up these institutions, these financial institutions, for which then is the reason why Bitcoin gained popularity in the first place. Was distributed means of finances, right? Power back to the individual instead of the institutions. But this is, as I said before, I have never committed an act of rape. I have not ever. I'm not gonna say never. Never say never. I have not ever committed an act of rape. I've not ever committed an act of statutory rape. And the statutory rape or the rape amongst the arts communities, or the usage of position for power in the arts communities, sexual favors and so forth, including fashion, right? You imagine, because I was like looking at a good example would be was it this movie? I'm gonna watch this. Neon Demon, right? Directed by Nicholas Winding Refn. A very young woman, Ella Fanning. And so this is, okay, so art imitates life, life imitates art. And the tagline for this one is, an aspiring model, Jessie, is new to Los Angeles. However, her beauty and youth, which generate intense fascination and jealousy within the fashion industry, may prove themselves sinister. So like anyone that has an advantage, has intelligence, has beauty, has wealth, or power, right? The fourth one, and then the fifth one would be wisdom, right? That makes you a target to other people, right? It makes you vulnerable in a sense. So like, what can I say? Once you achieve a position, let's say like talent with hard work beats everything. It really does. So while the thunderstorm goes outside, the watershed moment, right? In the springtime, the winter of discontent, so to speak. It inspires jealousy, and then jealousy from people who have made bad decisions in their lives, especially, again, I'm still acquainted, if we're going to go by the bona fides. And I shared a house with a gay man. It didn't mean anything to me. There used to be a time in this culture where it didn't matter. We could make fun of each other, but then the cancel culture and the victimhood mentality. Oh, you can't make fun of me. You can't assault me. That's offensive. No. This very weak mentality. Because which results in slavery. To be honest with you, right? So what I have on is a quote by Plato. It's on my Instagram here. Let's scroll down a bit. Dictatorship naturally arises out of democracy, and the most aggravated form of tyranny and slavery out of the most extreme liberty. So the most free societies, whether it be culturally with the sexuality, finance, and whatever degree of freedom you want, your personal freedom you want to go by, is what results in slavery. Actually, what results is slavery, because you're more manipulable. The examples that a lot of religious people will cite is the easy access to alcohol and marijuana, and then also the case of the legalized drugs, say like in Vancouver, where the government supply is sold at a cheaper rate, and the people take that, clean supply, and then they resell it on the street. Unintended consequences of harm reduction. All right. Let's see. So, and again, the statutory rape thing, it happens. It happens, right? Especially in organizations where these grooming people are allowed in. So because eventually the LGBTQ is and there's people that resist it within those communities, that it results in pedophilia. It does. Every single time, a slippery slope. Not as an argument, but they continuously move the goalposts of the argument as to what's diversity, right? What's true representation. This is why I get annoyed not only by the incompetence of certain of art councils, but because of their agendas. Because everybody has an agenda, right? Especially when it concerns money, because that's what it's really about. It's about finances, and if we're going to talk about that, again, that's why I live with my parents, because I didn't want to get raped by the banks. Excuse me. Because that's what's happening. That's what has happened with mortgages, and then the interest rates continuously with the debt loading and so on and so forth, increasing costs of living. And I'm going to cut it short here because my dog is barking and I got to tend to her. So we'll see you next time.